Technovation Talks. Technovation Talks. Technovation Talks. Technovation Talks. Technovation Talks. The IP Tech and Innovation Services Annual is exclusively sponsored by LexisNexis.
Hello, and welcome to Technovation Talks, a new podcast series brought to you by the IP Tech and Innovation Services Annual. I'm your host, Dr. Claudia Duffy, and I'm the founder of Innovare IP, a full-service firm of patent and trademark attorneys based in the United Kingdom. This podcast series is presented on behalf of Northlands Media, publishers of the IP Tech and Innovation Services Annual, which was officially launched during INTA in May this year in our wonderful city of London. The IP Tech and Innovation Services Annual is a publication dedicated to exploring the evolving intersection of intellectual property, technology, innovation, and professional services across the global IP sector. Throughout this series, I will be speaking with some of the leading voices shaping the future of IP technology, from innovative platforms and service providers to pioneering organizations delivering real value and transformation within the intellectual property industry. In today's episode, I'm pleased to welcome Nadine Stuttle, founder and CEO of PSS Solutions, an IP-focused consulting and advisory group in the technology and IP sector. Nadine, welcome to Technovation Talks. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Before we dive into the discussion, could you share a little about your career journey and what led you to pursue a path in IP?
I had a specific interest in IP, having a general legal background. The sector interested me and I was sort of intrigued by IP. So having done sort of a 6-month secondment into an IP department, I found it was a real intersection of the science, the law, the process and the tech. And that sort of sparked me to focus solely into the IP sector. So I've actually now been working in IP for over 26 years. So obviously a lot of change and transformation on the technology, innovation, and the way we service clients and IP is managed globally actually during that time. Thank you.
So Nadine, you built PSS Solutions as what you describe as the only fully independent IP-focused consulting and advisory firm in the sector. What gap in the market prompted that decision, and why does independence matter so much in this context?
I built PSS because I felt there was no other consultancy firm solely focused on the IP sector. And we are a group of highly experienced, sort of minimum 10 years plus consultants, all coming from an IP background, having led large IP operational units, be that in a law firm or a corporate. Now, in order to provide our clients with truly impartial advice, the best advice we can, we are needed to be independent. While we keep very close links and relationships with all the vendors and service providers in this sector, we have no formal relationships. What that means is we can be truly independent and provide correct advice to our clients. Now, in our competitors in this market, that might not always be the case, but that is something I have held very true to my heart and will continue to do so when I established PSS. Really is for the best interest of our clients so that we can be independent consultants offering the best advice for their benefit.
The best advice and therefore the best technical solutions that will serve their needs. So your career path is unusual, and you moved from legal practice into operations and technology at a time when those disciplines were still emerging in the IP sector. How did that early strategic choice shape the way PSS Solutions approaches client engagements today?
When I first started in IP, many years ago when we still had typewriters and were filing sort of PCT safe on floppy disks, I got very frustrated with constantly reinventing the wheel and the lack of technology in this sector and the lack of leveraging of technology. Equally, I was very interested in the operational aspects behind it. So, yes, it's a very different career path. I believe it's very beneficial for our clients because we've done the job. We understand the process, we understand the nuances of IP law and what that is required to do successful prosecution and enforcement in the various jurisdictions. But I became frustrated with just, like I said, constantly reinventing the wheel in this, and thought there's got to be a more efficient way. There's got to be a better way. So I actually took the conscious decision many years ago to move into that sector, way before legal operations, IP operations, legal tech were even the buzzwords and the huge industry that they are today. It shapes our client engagements because, like I said, we understand, we've done the jobs, we've been there, we've suffered their pain, and we have a real in-depth understanding of where people are coming from and the needs of the clients, the corporates, and everybody, and all the different stakeholders that they serve. So with that sort of understanding of the technology and the rapidly changing technology environment that we find ourselves in today, with the background in IP law, and have and formalities as well, I believe that's a very strong combination, and it's that combination we actually bring to our client engagements. Now, when I set up PSS, many people often ask me, what does PSS stand for? And that stands for people, structure and strategy, which we believe are truly the fundamentals to driving any change in an organization.
Indeed. And in your article in the inaugural IP Tech and Innovation Services Annual, you called it Technology in IP, Powerful Tools, Complex Reality. So what prompted you to contribute to this publication, and why is this the right moment for that particular title, Technology in IP, Powerful Tools, Complex Reality?
I wanted to contribute to the IP Tech Services Annual because I truly believed, along with Norton Media, that there was a gap in the market. There is so much technology in this space. It's a confusing marketplace, which is rapidly changing and developing. Okay. Which is also what led me to write the article entitled, like you said, Powerful Tools, Complex Reality. The tools have really developed and can significantly deliver efficiency, cost, productivity savings from the corporate and the law firm perspective, especially in terms of their ability for data and documents, the collaboration, connectivity aspects. However, it's complex. It's a complex landscape to navigate, especially as these tools, if we think specifically of the IPMS management sort of suite of tools, they used to deliver a breadth of functionality. So they used to do everything. And they've really changed over the years to sort of offer more of a depth and a breadth. So as in they specifically focus on IP management. And then they're actually the best-in-class sort of solutions at the moment is then to connect it to a best-in-class document management system, financial management system. So you end up with a platform with several platforms linked instead of one that is a breadth of functionality to actually various connected solutions which provide the depth that is required. So each aspect focuses on its own specialist area. That leads to a complex environment. To know what will connect with what and how can you leverage those connections that are available to provide this seamless sort of platform and user experience. So that's why I think they are very powerful, all of these tools, but it's complex to navigate. And law firms and corporates don't often in IP change technology solutions very frequently. We are trained to be risk averse as our profession. So therefore it's exceptionally important that clients receive the correct impartial advice and we help them navigate that complex reality so that it is delivered the best outcomes that they can get and the best value for money as well. There's a lot of licensing tied up with this as well, and obviously all the data exchanges. So very powerful, fantastic tools on the market, but the complex reality comes by how you leverage those and actually connect them all together for that seamless end-to-end experience.
And of course, this is where PSS Solutions comes in. And the central argument of your article in the IP Tech and Innovation Services Annual is that the IP technology landscape has never offered more powerful tools, yet successfully leveraging them has never been more challenging. Again, a complex reality, powerful tools. Can you walk us through why that paradox has emerged now in 2026?
Yes, certainly. With the emergence of exceptionally powerful AI tools in this market, that's actually led to a challenge. It's an opportunity as well as a challenge. The opportunity is there to drive efficiency, savings, productivity, all of those. However, to leverage them successfully requires successful integration into the current landscapes. So, for example, data segregation, one client's data to another, that's complex to achieve, especially as we find a lot of more traditional law firms are still running on outdated underlying platforms. So while they want to leverage the modern AI tools that are available and need to because they're being pushed by their clients, the constraining factor is their underlying technology landscape doesn't facilitate that very well. So that's one sort of example why successfully leveraging them can be challenging because of the underlying technology that everything operates on. A lot of the AI platforms are cloud-based, the same as the IPMS, but what about the document? So it's kind of complex as well to ensure that that whole technology landscape is aligned and kept up to date, actually, so that the new tools can be leveraged and seamlessly put into organizations. So that's sort of some of the paradoxes we see where people want to use this stuff. They're being pushed to use it. They know they need to use it. They see the benefit of using it. But there's constraining factors in the underlying technology landscapes within the firms that are constraining them from doing that. So therefore it leads to sort of a far wider overall technology process, people sort of change projects than just actually now we can bolt on into our existing tech landscape and operational infrastructure, the AI platforms, drafting, prosecution, etc., that are now available.
So, indeed, the emergence of AI and the pace at which these tools, although powerful, they continue to develop, has created a paradox. But you also identify integration as what you call the hidden challenge, where modern IP systems must interact with financial platforms, document management tools, e billing systems, and more. In your consulting experience, where does integration most frequently derail an otherwise well planned technology program?
Integrations are always highly complex to achieve, and it does depend, what is being connected to what. So if we take a law firm example, then they serve multiple clients, multiple jurisdictions who will be all probably be using their own document, data, and e-billing financial platforms, whereby the law firm is required to feed that data seamlessly in. Now that used to be met by putting FTEs, putting people resource behind it. That is actually very much now changing to having connectivity between the law firm and its clients. But from a law firm perspective, I've never ever seen a law firm who purely have to deal with, one suite of products from that all their clients are aligned on. Everybody uses their own sort of systems. While a lot of them are commercial, we still find some bespoke home-built sort of, data document systems in place. So that means from a law firm perspective, they need to have a system that has a complete set of open APIs where they can seamlessly transfer data, documents, and financial information between them. While the opportunity is there and the technology is there, it is complex to achieve. And not all law firms we deal with have that sort of level of IT expertise in-house to actually achieve this. So it needs to be very thoughtfully planned, approached, and staggered actually, so that seamless integration, data, document, and finance can actually be achieved. So actually managing that as an overall program of change in conjunction with the clients takes very careful planning, management, and therefore execution. Obviously, we have to ensure all the, the data segregation, all the data protection, and such rules and legal obligations are obviously met as well. So that's another good example of this interface of technology and legal as well that we face and is challenging in the IP landscape at the moment. If I think about it also from the corporate law firm perspective, then they deal with, a range of law firms. So again, each law firm might use its own platform. So the challenge is the same on the corporate side, slightly different aspect to it at all as well, obviously. But both the law firm and the corporates have this challenge because it just isn't this sort of leading industry standard platforms that everybody uses. And we're never going to achieve that. So it's an unachievable vision. So therefore we have to cope and navigate this complex reality of different integrations, different systems, different clients, different law firms, obviously while completely respecting the legal frameworks that we have to operate within for the various countries.
All right, we'll take a short break and be right back with more from IP Technovation Talks. Stay with us.
Introducing the Women's IP Alliance, a global professional development and membership community platform for women in intellectual property. Launching in January 2027, WIPA connects women across IP, law, technology, academia, research and innovation through global networking, mentorship, education, events, collaboration, and leadership opportunities. Founding membership is limited to the first 300 members worldwide. Be there from the beginning. Connect, collaborate, learn and lead. Join the Women's IP Alliance, women'sipalliance.com.
So obviously integration is key, integration of all of these different platforms we've been talking about. However, IP professionals, and I'm one of them as a European patent attorney, we tend to operate in cultures where risk must be meticulously controlled. And yet technology transformation, as we've been discussing, demands a tolerance for change. How does PSS Solutions address that organizational resistance, if any? And what does a successful change management framework actually look like in an IP department?
Change is challenging for everybody. Okay, the first reaction to change is, what does it mean to me? Okay, that personal aspect. Okay, and that's human nature. Now, equally, if we think of it from the law firm perspective, law firms don't frequently go through change and are not used to change as much as a sort of large corporate is. So very different sort of approaches we take based on, first of all, the law firm or the corporate. Again, the second sort of factor is the culture, the history, and the geographical sort of presence and structures of the firms or the corporates. Okay. So when we drive change, we always look at where they're coming from, what their background and their culture is, and try and measure what that scale of change then is for the various different stakeholder groups. Okay. We always start with the business outcomes, very clearly explaining the why. Everybody buys into change if they understand the why. And that's a super important first step to take. Okay. And that's why, like I said earlier, PSS stands for people, structure, strategy. So we always start with the people aspect regarding change. I'm equally a big advocate of technology, but technology alone will never solve the business problem. It always does need the people and the buy-in and the support and the rigorous change management approach behind it. If you have that, again, super powerful combination that comes together. But without the people, their trust and demonstrating the benefit and them understanding the why, it will never really be successful. So we always engage with the key stakeholders early, try and identify those drivers of change, make sure that they are on board and understanding and serve as sort of change agents then throughout the business. We roll out a very structured program of change management and engagement and early adoption and understanding as well. So engaging the key stakeholders early is absolutely key and really focusing on the people. Also, when we look at IP environments, confidence, acceptance comes from strong governance, and successful change is about, identifying the roles, the data ownership, the security, the workflows, the sign-off, the approvals, as well as the auditability of the data, the reporting, etc. as well. So when we drive change, once we focused on on the people and that fundamental core of driving any change, we then look at the sort of wider frameworks in place and very much adapt those standard models that we have, again, to the cultures, to the organisations. And what we find when we actually engage with those different stakeholder groups, they're actually specific needs and requirements. Another aspect that is really important during long-term change programs is to actually, identify the quick wins, the incremental wins, and that shows continuous improvement and again drives buy-in and acceptance. So however small it might be, we show, we demonstrate, we get the buy-in that way as well. It improves communication, acceptance, and the overall buy-in to any change that is required. So various frameworks we use, there's never a one-fits-all answer to that question at all, very much adapted to the corporate law firm situation, geography, history, culture, and really the people that we engage with. We're very strongly focused on the people aspects of driving change in this IP ecosystem we operate within.
So moving from people and the change management, which is absolutely essential to get the buy-in, you also raise the concept of technology debt. Organizations layering AI and new tools onto existing systems without ever rationalizing the architecture underneath. As AI-driven tools such as docketing platforms, prior art search engines, and analytics dashboards proliferate, how acute is this risk of technology debt becoming for corporate IP departments?
I'd say the risk is on the corporate and actually the law firm side as well. We see slightly different levels of that risk between the two. Obviously, very much depends on a corporate department, how much prosecution they do internally, how much is with external law firms. So obviously where they have the presence of the patent attorneys in country. When I speak to any corporate or law firm and talk and say, you've got debt, I'm often faced with very sort of stark looks across the room and say, we're not in debt. I say, well, yeah, but how do you define debt? Are you running on outdated technology, outdated processes? Lack of investment in people and their skills and capabilities. And that's where you sort of measure debt, really. Now, technology debt accumulates. We often see corporates and law firms running on outdated platforms or more modern platforms, but they haven't invested in continuously improving on those. So the vendors might have launched upgrades, new functionality, but there isn't that process of continuous improvement and that mentality of continuous improvement and investment in them to keep up to date with the new features and functionalities that are being delivered. And that does take embedding, again, when we get to the change part, that culture of continuous improvement so that debt doesn't accumulate. The moment change stops, debt accumulates. And that is the sort of, catch-22 situation that we live in with most technology. And of course, the longer debt accumulates, the bigger that debt becomes, and then the more the investment is required to actually then do that upgrade. Now, when we talk of AI tools, as I said earlier, they work based on modern platforms, cloud-based, SaaS-based platforms. So if law firms or corporates haven't kept pace with that underlying technology, they then can't leverage the AI platforms to the level that they could be or should be, or more importantly, need to be in this environment we live in today. Also, I find when people on corporates and law firms run on more outdated platforms and have used them for many years, etc., then they often don't invest in doing data audits. So how clean, complete, and correct is my data? Okay. So to leverage a lot of the AI docketing tools that are available, the profiles, the analytical dashboards, it all comes down to how good and clean and complete your data is. So again, if you've acquired debt almost in terms of the data management, then you again cannot leverage those tools as well as could be or should be, again, or clients are demanding. Or in a corporate, the business stakeholders require of the reporting on the portfolio. So when technology debt accumulates, it becomes larger and larger over time, actually. So we really try to embed into corporates and law firms this mentality of continuous improvement, continuous investment, so that debt does not accumulate. And then as these new tools come onto the market, they can be correctly leveraged, so they deliver the advantages across the business that they can do and that are needed in this sector today.
So the people need to be agile, the people behind these platforms, behind these tools, and also the people adopting these platforms, they need to be agile. This is even more important when we know that IP is a global sector. And drawing on your work across Europe, North America, and Asia, what practical advice would you offer to an IP department, corporate IP group, or IP firm that is about to embark on a technology transformation program? And what does the IP tech landscape look like to you over the next 3 to 5 years?
The advice I would give to any corporate or law firm about to embark or to look into this is start with the end in mind. And that means the process. What do you want to achieve? Be clear about your business goals, the aims of the project, and what you want to achieve from it. Have a clear vision. Make sure everybody's aligned to that vision from the start at all levels of stakeholder as well. Coming back to that initial, it's about the change. Now, we often find people when they think, oh, we need to upgrade our technology, they dive straight into looking at the technology. And while that can be beneficial to get an overview of what is in the market and what is available, it's actually equally not the best way to start. Again, start with the end in mind. What processes do I want to look at? How do I want to operate going forward? What's my operating model? Do I need to drive any people change, any structural change actually as well? So to actually look a bit wider than just technology, because technology will never solve the problem. It's an underlying foundational level. It is not the solution. You always need the people, the structure, the strategy, the processes behind it. So diving straight into look at products is not the most successful approach, and it's one we don't actually advocate with our approach within PSS Solutions. And actually, frequently when we do speak to clients and they say, oh, we need a new technology, we do try to sort of make them understand why diving straight into that is not the best approach. And that's how we get very successful outcomes with our projects. And we say, look, you've got to look wider than the technology here as well. Be clear about what you're looking for and to get out of the technology. Now, equally, when we work with our clients, when they select technology, the vendors are exceptionally good at demonstrating this, but they always show the bells and whistles and never really the underlying sort of, what's under the bonnet. And we really help clients look at what's under the bonnet as well, so they understand completely what they are buying, what they are getting, and where the developments in those products are going actually as well. So I think that whenever anybody embarks on a technology transformation program, it's actually not so much about the technology, it's about everything else around it. And that should really be the first point of focus. In terms of the second part of your question as to where does the tech landscape look like in the next 3 to 5 years, I am frequently asked that question. I wish I had a crystal ball to look into it. But if I look at the pace of change that we've seen at the moment, I expect that will continue, if not accelerate. And really, it's very much going to the open API solutions where seamless collaboration of data and documents, finance can be achieved. Equally, seamless integration with all the PTOs. Because if I think of this industry, it's highly inefficient data exchange model that we operate within. I'm a corporate, I pay a law firm to receive my data from the PTO, input it into their system, send me a letter, I have to pay somebody to input it into my system. That's really an eroding model where this technology is actually fully fueling that erosion, because as a corporate, wherever I sit, I can get that data myself from the PTO. So why do I need to pay the law firm to do that? And we've actually had a number of very successful projects with corporates where we've actually changed that and flipped that model, as I call it, and delivered significant cost and efficiency savings to corporates on that basis. Again, from the law firm perspective, that is a distinct challenge in terms of where technology is going over the next 3 to 5 years, because they need to strategically think, what revenue stream did I used to get from that particular service offering to clients? How can I reposition myself so actually I'm already thinking of this now, and I can put solutions in place and different commercial models and pricing and offerings to clients when this challenge really does hit me. Okay, so we look at that from both sides of the sector, the law firm and the corporate. But that is really one example, one of many actually, of how we see technology evolving and eroding these traditional models we have in the IP sector. And I think that model is really going to accelerate over the next few years. I also see the technology, very much moving more towards, like I said earlier, the depths of functionality, not the breadth of functionality, and having that sort of seamless connectivity layer. And a lot of platforms now are really working on that connectivity, the AI integration, how they can leverage a lot of good AI tools directly into their platforms to again offer that seamless end-to-end solutions for the clients. Technology is also moving in the direction of making it much easier to actually change between systems. So once you get to a standard data model, it's actually easier to transition. So I do foresee actually this model that we have at the moment where law firms or corporates, sort of when they have solutions in place, there is a longevity to those. Generally, we see in corporates sort of 8 to 10 years, the law firms sort of more 12 to 15. I very much see that actually decreasing on both sides as this pace of change and easeability to switch actually between vendors and solutions becomes far easier in this market as well. But I think we're in very exciting times. Changes are constant in this industry. That's what keeps us on our toes. That's why we enjoy it so much. And really, as a whole group within PSS Solutions, actually really, thoroughly enjoy this market that we work in and are very passionate about it. I'm passionate about delivering the best for our clients, actually, totally impartially, and driving, change and transformation initiatives.
Many thanks. So it is not really just IP departments or IP firms going through a technology transformation program. From what you are saying, it looks like in parallel, they should also go through a transformation of their business model, the types of services that they deliver and the way they deliver these services, because it seems as if the integration of technology and service delivery is one which we must look into and embrace this change. Nadine, thank you for joining us today and for sharing your insights into the work of PSS Solutions. And now I see why this is the only fully independent IP-focused consulting and advisory group in the IP sector. You have indeed offered an impartial, honest, and clear overview of the business you have founded.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to speak with you today.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about the IP Tech and Innovation Services Annual or explore opportunities to be part of the 2027 edition, please visit www.iptechnovation.com. Until next time, thank you for listening.
The Technovation Talks podcast has been brought to you by Northlands Media PR and Marketing Limited in the United Kingdom and hosted by Dr. Claudia Duffy from Innovare IP. The 2026 edition of the IP Tech and Innovation Services Annual is exclusively sponsored by LexisNexis.